Hi again, Beverly Gale here, talking a little bit more about coping with blindness. And today I'd like to just talk a little bit about missing the signs and the symptoms. On one of my other videos I talked about these floating blobs in my eyes where in the middle of the night I could not see through them, and I went to my ophthalmologist and she basically told me that she didn't think there was anything to worry about. She didn't see any signs of macular degeneration. And so I went on my merry way, and I would wake up in the middle of the night, view these things, but in the morning when the light was present, I could see perfectly fine, so I never thought anything more about it. But as I got to thinking about that later on, after I really was diagnosed for the first time with macula, and I had already bled and lost part of the use of my right eye, I thought maybe I should go back over that and revisit it, because I actually thought I was going to have this as a problem. As I said on my other videos, my family, my mother and father both had macular degeneration. But I missed the signs back then. And if you're watching this video, or if you've got a loved one that you're watching this because you're interested and you think maybe a loved one might have some symptoms, let me just share with you some of the symptoms that I had. Early on, I had night blindness, which seemed to reverse itself after I did a yearly dose with bilberry extract. And was that a correlation? I'm not really sure. But later on, when things started to happen, first of all, I've been wearing glasses for probably 15 years. And I started out wearing glasses over the counter, and then I went to regular prescription glasses, and over just prior to when I was having the major part of my problem, I noticed that my vision was beginning to decline. So I was going back to the optometrist and getting glasses every year or year and a half. Maybe that was a sign, and I missed that. At one point I was given the Amsler chart, and I want to show this to you. Now the Amsler chart is basically a grid with a dot in the middle. You can go online, AMSLER chart, and print one up if you don't have one at your house. And I was told to just look at the dot in the center, let your peripheral vision relax, and see if any of the grid lines were distorted or blurred or missing. Well, I can tell you that one of the symptoms that I had was that the lines were very wavy. Now, I had already begun to have symptoms at nighttime. After I was driving a long time at night, one night I started to feel like I was getting double vision, and it was getting a little disconcerting. And then it must have taken me, a few nights of going out on the road and realizing that the double vision was getting worse. That's also a sign. If you think about it, it's a sign of fluid leakage in behind the eye, because it's like if you were to look through a glass of water, you would see the item where you're looking at would be distorted. It's the same with your eyeball. So that was a symptom. And by the time I had realized that in fact I was really having a problem, my right eye kind of gave out on me, and I'm literally blind from the center of this eye to my nose. And that's wet macular degeneration. So then I went and I looked for a specialist. And I have to tell you that that was a journey all on its own. And I just want to share with you that perhaps it's a good idea to get more than one professional opinion. And I say that for a reason. It's a very scary prospect to think that you're having a diagnosis of perhaps going blind. And one of my friends called me up very, very excited, or, anxious is the right word. She called me and she said, "Beverly, my ophthalmologist told me that I have macular degeneration, and I know you have it, and I really don't know what to do." I said, "Well, I suggest that you go to a macular degeneration specialist and have them take a look." So she said, okay. And then she asked for my doctor, and I gave her his name. Now, this is a different doctor than the one who, in my opinion, may have misdiagnosed me. This is a specialist that I found after several failed attempts at getting a specialist that I could relate to. Anyway, I gave her the name of my doctor. She made an appointment, went down and saw him, and called me back very excited. Beverly, he says I don't have macular degeneration, but I'm worried because of what you told me about the doctor that missed it. And so she said, I said to him, well, are you sure? And he said, dear, he said, I look at macular degenerated eyes all day long. That's all I do. That's my main specialty. And I can tell you, quite frankly, you do not have macular degeneration. So she was very happy to hear that. And she might not have macular degeneration, but she might also have something else going on in her eyes. And he had suggested she go back, have another talk with her doctor, and perhaps get a specialist of a different kind to see what might be going on, not to ignore the problem. And so I wanted to just let you know that it's important to have more than one opinion. And my first opinion, I was too happy to have been told I didn't have it. It was a general ophthalmologist. She should have recognized the signs. Maybe it was too early for her, and she didn't have the right equipment, and she just looked in my eyes. I will tell you this. When you go to a macular degeneration specialist, there is a procedure that they give you where after they before they dilate your eyes, they want you to look at the vision chart and see where your vision is, and they talk about where it is versus where it was. And then they dilate your eyes, and you go into a room where there is a machine where they videotape the inside of your eye. And what it looks like is just a giant eyeball, and brightly colored giant eyeball that shows the inside of the macula. And the doctors can take a hard look at that and see what's going on. And they can see from month to month the progression of your macular degeneration. So it's important to get an early diagnosis. And then it's important to get the right doctor. My next step after I found out I was really having a problem was I was told there was a specialist out in my area, and lots of accolades. So I went to this gentleman, and he was so condescending and so obnoxious. And when I tried to ask questions, because basically when you're told you're going blind, you need to know what's going on. You want to have someone you can relate to. And I couldn't relate to this man. He basically came out and said, this is the way it's done, and you're going to get shots, and that will help stop some of the bleeding, and that's that. And I thought, I don't want to work with someone that I can't discuss my illness with, because there might be times when something happens and I don't know if it's normal or not, and if I don't feel comfortable calling my doctor, then I don't want that person as my doctor. So I said to my husband, let's find someone else. So then I got another recommendation from another friend of mine who really liked her doctor downtown, and I said okay. And I went down to this particular teaching group, and the doctor was perfectly fine. I had no problem with him, but I never saw him again. He put me in a clinic with a group of people who were constantly rotating in and out of my monthly visit. And I didn't have a problem with young doctors looking in my eyes, but I felt that there was no continuity. And besides which, it was a program that was a little bit more structured, and I was having a problem with some of the drops they were putting in my eyes. I was having a real reaction to them, and the whole process kind of frightened me. They laid me down. They put a sheet over my head with a cutout of the eye hole, and then they had these eyelid curlers that they put on my eye. Well, I had seen those in horror films, and believe me when I tell you, I was not a happy camper to have that put on my eye. And then they put all this gunk in my eyes, and then after the shot, I would be miserable for maybe a day or two. And I kept saying to him, I'm having an allergic reaction. Well, we're sorry. This is the way our procedures are, and this is how it has to be, and just deal with it. So this was after a year and a half, and I felt that I couldn't deal with it any longer. And so I went on another search, and I found my husband's doctor. We asked him, did he know a good ophthalmologist that was a macular degeneration specialist? And he said, well, my wife goes to one and she loves him. So we thought, well, if it's a doctor whose wife is going to one, we're sure that he's a good doctor. So we got his name, and he became my ophthalmologist. And he was so unassuming and so friendly and so open and so willing to talk to me, which maybe you don't feel comfortable talking to doctors, but I've always felt that the doctor's only as good as the information that's given to him. He is a detective, and he needs to know what's happening. And I need to know I can tell a doctor that without being put down because I'm a layman. So anyway, bottom line was that I fell in love with my doctor. He was so unassuming, and I later learned that he was in charge of a whole division of the school. He was a dean of part of the school, and he taught there. And I mean, he was a bigwig, but he was nice. And so I'm only saying this because this is a race against blindness when you're told you have macular degeneration, and it's not a sprint. It is a marathon. It could be a sprint if it's wet, but it is a marathon because they can hold, if they do the right treatments, they can hold off your macula for a long time. If they catch it in time, they might actually stave off blindness. You may not have a blindness prescription for disaster. You have a chance if you get to this early enough where you are able to kind of keep an eye out on your eye condition. So I just wanted to share with you that this is happening to me. It's gotten worse because my dry macula was where I thought I would have more time because my father's dry was very, very slow, progressive. And mine is not. It's a different kind of dry macula. It sets up differently than his. And so I have had much more problem with my vision than I was expecting. But again, I've been taking the shots since, I think it's 2008. So I've had like 8.5 years where it's pretty much held its own. And my doctor said to me, Beverly, he says, I could not prevent the blindness in your right eye. He said, but your peripheral vision is excellent. And he says, I am going to continue giving you protective shots in your left eye, which is the good eye, to prevent central blindness as long as we can. And we just have to hope for the best with the dry macula because unfortunately there isn't anything on the market right now that works with it. So I'm here to tell you, get a good doctor and stay with the program. And believe it or not, continue using the Amsler chart because as a problem erupted in my left eye, which was part of this dry macula, it was the Amsler test that alerted me to it. So be proactive with your health and make sure that you can communicate well with your doctors because you should ask as many questions as you can and try to have somebody that has some compassion for what you're going through. Hope this helped. Until next time, I'm Beverly Gale, and I'm coping with blindness.